Okay, Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, madam.
Yes, madam.
Yes,
Waalaikumsalam.
Yes,
madam.
madam.
Alright, okay, so ready ya? Let me check first. I think 51. Okay. Baru 52 students Siapa yang baru masuk group ni? Amirul Ashraf baru nak masuk group Okay, so for today's topic is about arrays. Okay, arrays. Right. Okay, so for today's lecture, I'm expecting students after the explanations, okay, to apply the concept of one and two dimensional arrays in Java, whereby this arrays concept is used to store, organize and process data using certain methods such as loops. Right? Okay, so basically what is the array? Okay, so this array usually we note that using these kinds of symbol. Okay, these square brackets. But sometimes we have array without these kinds of square brackets. Okay, so this meaning of array is a data structure that stores multiple values of the same data type. Okay, so using this array, we can use an elements, and also we can call back the element based on the index. Okay, so we have the term called element and index. Sorry, please stop recording because the recording will be coming in my storage. Okay, please stop the recording. Please stop the recording Okay, I will record because I'm using some streaming device to record, so you can refer back to YouTube channel my YouTube channel. Alright, so for this array, there is a term that we call element index, and mainly the purpose of using this array to work with the list of data. Alright, so in the array, it consists of manual methods of listing the elements. Okay, instead that we do list the elements one by one, so we can group that using array method. Okay, so the purpose or the benefits is to reduce the number of variables. Okay, so using this array method, and we can store related data together. We just need to declare or define the array, then you can just list the elements for that array. Okay, and this array method support processing data. Mainly we will use loop, either while loop, do while, but commonly used is the for loop. Alright, so some common example is we can use array to store exam marks, temperatures, monthly sales. We can use this array to list the name of students, or maybe the information something like an address in the string data types. Okay, how to declare the array? Okay, so this is the format. You must have data type followed by the names, array name, and equal to new, and the data types followed by the size. Okay, for examples, here we have the data type as the integer, right? Then we have this empty curly brackets. This is square brackets not curly bracket sorry, this empty square brackets. Okay, this is empty. Empty means that we just state the array list, right? And then this is your array name, numbers, equal to new integer 5. Okay, so the left side refers to creating the array, okay, on the left part. On the right side, so we state the number of arrays consists of 5 integers. right? 5 integers, because we have primitive data type as integer, and the number inside of this square bracket is 5. Okay, so in other words, from this example, we have all element initialized to default values, such as for the integer, because here in the example we have integer type. So integer, the default value will be 0. So if you have double declaration, so it will be initialized to default values such as 0.0. Booleans, default values is false. Then for the string, the default value is null. Null referring to the empty sets. Okay. Okay. Next we have array index basics. This is based on the element itself. Sometimes we call as the index basics. Alright, when we have the list of array, so we can basically call the elements based on the index number. Okay, so all array types, have indices start at 0. Okay, so start at 0. So for a certain number of array, let's say we have the array size of n referring to any general numbers. Okay, so the valid indices is until from 0. Okay, from 0 until n minus 1. Okay, for example, we have array in the previous example, let's say the size is 5, correct? So your index start from 0 until 4. Okay, 0 until 4. This is the examples. Okay, so we have list of integers, for example, numbers 0. So number 0, that 0 refer to the first element in the array list, right? So number 0 is the first element. Okay, so we can call that, or we can assign what is the value. In this current example, this is to assign that for the index 0, for these numbers, it has value 10. Alright, so the storage locations in this array are the elements. Okay, means that the first element is number 0, the element is 10. Okay, so 0 is the index number. Alright, and then each element of the array has unique number called a subscript that identify the subscript, and these elements or the subscript start at 0 in most programming language. Either you use Python, C, C++, and so on. So there is a concept of same array index basic. Okay, for any types of programming language, especially between this Java, Python, C, and C++. Right, how to initialize arrays with value, right? Okay, so as mentioned previously, right, what is the formats? We have data types followed by the square brackets on the left hand side, and this is the array name. Okay, so if we want to initialize means that we want to give or list what is the elements for this array, so we use these kinds of curly brackets. Okay, we use these kinds of curly brackets, and you can list what is the elements for that array, separate between the elements using comma. Alright, so if we assign like this, so the compiler will determine the size automatically. Okay, so what is the index number for 31? So this is index 0. Alright, so basically this is days in the array 0, right? Okay, so the array's name is days lah. So this is days 0. 28 is days 1. Okay, days 1 is your second element. Okay, and so on. Okay, so the size will be determined by the compiler automatically when you assign what is the elements. How to access the array elements? For example, okay, in the current example, we have array name value, right? The primitive data types here is the integer. We know if this is array using the square brackets, and this value has 3 elements, 10, 20, and 30. Okay, so when we have system out.println the lines, so what is the value that will display when we call value 1? Value 1, what is the output that will be displayed for value 1?
20.
20. Okay, because this is index 0, this is index 1, this is index 2. Okay, so value referring to your array name. Right, moving forwards, next one, how we use the loops that you have learned before this in the previous repetition structure with array. Okay, so commonly used for loop for arrays, right? Okay, so the one that I'm going to explain here will be starting with one-dimensional array. Okay, 1D, one-dimensional array. So in the current example, we have the syntax using for loop. This is initialization. Okay, this is the condition, and this is the update process based on the increment. So in this for loop, the task is to display the numbers, right, for repeatedly many. Okay, so in the task or in the statement, okay, you can see there is array symbol using these square brackets. Okay, so we can call or display or do any task related to the statement involving using array method. Okay, so for this example, we want to display the numbers in array methods. Okay, so what is the value of I? Should be starting from 0 and proceed to the next I, which is 1, and so on. Okay, so what we can see here, we can use for loop and merge it with array method. Okay, next one is about the length field, okay, that related to the array. So array, all types of array has a length field. Okay, so this length field refer to the way when the array stores the number of elements in the array. So how to use that kinds of length, right? So if you identify what is the object name, so you can just use that object name, then followed by dot length. Okay, so this is your object name lah, right? This is your object name. If you have something like x, so your object name is x, so you should have x dot length and so on. Okay, next one is the way how we inputting the values into arrays. Okay, so let's say we have the program here. This is the functions to activate the program to read the inputs. Okay, and next we have the for loops consisting of loop to ask the user to enter the score. Okay, and the programs will read the inputs in array form. So this is the way. What is the difference between this example with the previous one that you have learned before? This additionally we have this square brackets. Okay, so these are array symbols. Okay, so then the program basically can read the inputs for repeatedly. So the process is read the inputs as the integer type. So your object name is sc. So after the input is being readed, then it will be stored as score in array form. Okay, in array form. So your I start from 0. Next I will be 1, 2, 3, and so on. Alright. Okay, next is we can use array method for the accumulations problem. Okay, accumulation something like, let's say we want to compute the total number of elements, okay, or the sum of the elements in this case. But using the for loop, we can change the loops to the for each loop. Okay, the name for the loop structure becomes for each loop. Right, for each loop is a bit different compared to the one that you have learned. So basically, in the for loop that you have learned in the repetition structure, it consists of 3 items, right? Your initializations, conditions, and also the update process. Okay, but in this accumulations method for the array, basically you did not see any square brackets in the program. Did you see any square brackets here?
No, madam.
Do you see any square brackets? There's no square brackets. Okay, so it looks like there's no array. Okay, but the array will be transformed into this form. Okay, so they are using these kinds of double dots. Okay, so in the first line, we have integer total equal to 0. Basically, we have these declarations for the variable name total. Okay, so this is actually the accumulator variable. And since that we want to do some additions, okay, involving total equal to total plus value. Okay, total equal to total plus value. That is the long formula. Or you can have these kinds of another alternative formula. Alright. Okay, so the variable that we need to compute, which is your total plus value. So the total need to be initialized to 0. Okay, because we are going to add the values. And during the lab class, I already explained why we initialize this as 0, not 1 or other numbers. Okay, so you should know what is the reason. Mainly, if your process involves the addition process, so the variable need to be initialized to 0. So in this loop, okay, we use enhance for loop. Okay, this one. This part we call enhance for loop. Or sometimes it's called for each loop. Okay, so what is different for this enhance for loop? Or the other name is the for each loop. Okay, for each loop. So instead using index, okay, instead using index like the previous example, here we have index, right? This is your index in using the square brackets. So basically, Java have automatic process where it can go through each element in the array numbers. Okay, so I repeat, Java goes through each element in the array numbers. Okay, that means in this enhanced for loop for each iterations, so the value, this value takes one element from the array. Okay, starting from the first element. So when the numbers is entered, so your value takes one element from the array. So that is the meaning. Okay, starting from the first element until the last element. So basically, in the loop structure, okay, this total will be computed as the loop runs. Okay, so your total, which is your main variable, will be computed as the loop runs. Alright, so when the loops ends or finish, so your total contains the sum of all elements in the array. Okay, so basically, your total is the accumulative variable. Okay, this total is your accumulative variable. Value is your temporary variable. Okay, value is temporary variable, and this enhanced for loop stops at the end of the array. Okay, so if you can see here in this enhanced for loop, there is no array symbol, these kinds of square brackets. So basically, there's no index. There's no index needed in this example. Alright, okay. So for enhanced for loop, this is actually the basic structure. Okay, so we have for loops. There are only two parts in this parenthesis. Left one is your data type variables, then right one is your array name. So when you use this enhanced for loop or for each loop, we cannot modify the array size. Okay, and this enhanced for loop do not use any index method, and mainly this enhanced for loop is used, okay, when the program reading the values. Alright, any questions so far?
No, madam.
Any question? Okay, next let's see situations for arrays in methods. Okay, one dimensional array. Okay, mainly in the array form. So you have learned several methods related to Java, such as the one with return arguments, without return arguments, and so on. Okay, with parameters or without parameters. Okay, so basically arrays also work in those situations. Okay, so any array we can pass to the methods, any types of methods, and the array can be returned from the methods. For examples here, for the first case that we have to pass array that can be passed to methods, we have this Java methods, public static void display, right? Then we have here in this is the arguments. So in the current example, this allows us to process the array in separate method so that we can do reorganize or reuse something in the structure. Okay, so we have here public static. This is the static methods, so it can be called from your main. Next, we have void methods. Why we have void methods? Because this program or this kind of structure does not return any value. Okay, next one we have in the arguments in this parenthesis, or sometimes we call as the parameter. So this int square brackets arr. Okay, this refer to your parameter that receive entire integer array. Why integer? Because this is the data type has integer. Okay, but for the array one, you can state the parameter using arr in short form. Okay, not a single integer. It's not a single integer, but this one is the parameter that receive integer in the array form. Okay, so this arr, the array can be replaced with other name lah for the array that is passed in. Alright. Okay, next we go to the contents of this structure. Okay, for this 4 integer x kinds of, what is the methods here? They can see this is enhanced for loop, right? Okay, this one. This is enhanced for loop. How we identify? Because we have two parts, left and right, then separate by using double dots. Okay, so for x, it actually holds one element. This x holds one element at a time. And then on the right hand side, this is the array passed to the method. So this is the array that will be passed to the method. That means in each value in the array that will be printed. Why printed? Because your task here, which is print something, okay, is printed on a new line. Alright, so this is example that how the array passed to the method. Okay, let's see the second one. Second one is this one, return from methods. So here we have example, public static int. Okay, compared to the previous one. So there's no voids here. Why there's no voids? Because in this program, we want to return the array from the methods. Okay. Okay, so this int square brackets, this is for the method that returns integer array, not as a single integer. Then get values here. Get values in the parentheses is empty. That means there's no parameter or argument. Okay, but it produces array as output. Okay, it produces array as an output because there's a return something here. Okay, now we have we look at these contents of the structure. Int, this in array, the primitive data type is integer. Inside this, we create a local array name. Okay, this is array name, and it contains these three integers 1, 2, 3, and there is a return a. So this return means that there is a array reference back to the calling method. Okay, there is a array reference back to the calling methods. So basically, the array itself is not copy. The concept is not like copy paste, something like that. Okay, basically the array work when the caller receive access to the same array. So this is the explanations for this example of returning arrays from methods. Okay, next one is between the array list and the field or the contents of the arrays. Okay, so since previously you have seen the array size. So this array size may be larger than the number of useful elements. Okay, for example, on the left hand side, so in this bracket there's no sum amounts. So that means we can have this array that can store up to 100. Why 100? Because on the right hand side we state here new integer. in the square bracket is 100. Okay, so that means array size basically can be larger than the number of useful elements. Since there is 100, that means for this case we can store up to 100 integers. However, it doesn't mean that all these 100 elements will be used. Okay, so that is the meaning of partially filled arrays. And for this case, partially filled arrays, we can use a counter variable to track the actual data stored. Okay, next we have parallel arrays. Okay, parallel arrays means that you may have two different arrays that you want to align it based on the index. Okay, for example, I have array names, and the primitive data type is string. So we know this is a symbol for the array. And we have second array name scores. The primitive data type is the integer, and there is a square brackets referring to the array. So basically we can align that these scores and names, for examples 88 to Ali, 90 to Siti, and so on. Okay, so we can do this array align using matching concept, such that your name 0 is matched to score 0. Okay, so name 0 is actually Ali, so score 0 is 88. So this is the concept under parallel arrays. Okay, next is a bit more advanced for this one dimensional that we call arrays of objects. Okay, so what is the arrays of objects? Arrays hold references to the object. Basically, you must have the object known. You need to know what is the meaning of the object. All right. Okay, so when you work or arrays together with the objects, okay, so arrays can hold reference to the object. Okay, for example, we have this string students equal to new string 3. So what is the meaning of this tree? What is the meaning of this tree?
The size of the array.
Alright, okay. So basically this students array, okay, can hold 3 string objects. Can hold 3 string objects. Okay, but this is as an object. So that means at this point the array does not contain any actual strings yet. Okay, there's no specifics, so it only contains null references. For the one that this blue highlighted color, so that is the meaning, hold references to objects. Now once we have the next lines, for example, student 0 is Adam, students 1 is Siti, students 2 is Zara. Okay, so we know that this is your array list, and we initialize this array. So in this case, each element of the array is assigned a string object. Okay, so I repeat, for these following lines, each element of the array, what is your array name? Students, okay, is assigned a string object. So for examples, we have this index student 0, okay, then we have Adam. Students 1 is Siti. So this index tells us where each object is stored. Alright, okay, so basically, so array of objects store references to objects, not the primitive value. Primitive value is your primitive data types. So this is the fundamental concepts in Java. Alright. Okay, so let's identify these examples. Okay. Is this one-dimensional array for the current slides? Is this one-dimensional array? The examples here, this full coding, is it consists of one-dimensional array? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, how do you find out that? Here, one examples here. And then we have for loops. There is no nested loop basically. Alright. Okay, let's identify. Is there any enhanced for loop here? Is there any enhanced for loop?
Yeah, there's one.
Where is it?
The bottom one.
Bottom one? Where's the bottom one?
For double score colon tests.
Okay,
That one.
for this one. This is enhanced for loop. Alright.
Yeah.
So basically at this structure you did not see any square brackets, correct? But there is enhanced for loop whereby we have this array names task that will be uh, computed to the score. Score is actually your temporary variable. Then this score will be conducted or computed in the array form, right? Okay, so this is about one-dimensional array. Now we moving forward to two-dimensional array. Okay, so in this two-dimensional array, there is a concept that based on rows and columns. Okay, usually you will be using for loop, which is nested for loop. Alright, and when to use this two-dimensional array? If you just have one list, so you can just use one-dimensional array. But for this two-dimensional array, usually when there is a task that need to be listed in the table or matrix form, so we'll be using two-dimensional array concept. Alright, and can identify by using these kinds of square brackets. Okay, so the concept quite similar to the previous one-dimensional concept, but instead having one-dimensional, here we have two-dimensional concept. So when you want to access the list or the elements, you need to list that based on these two sets of square brackets, okay, based on the two indices. Okay, so for examples, if we want to represent maybe problems related to the marks, but the marks or the information that you need to keep is the students with the subjects. Alright, not only the marks, students and the subject, for examples. And then sales data involving months and the products, or we have seating plans in terms of the rows and the column. Okay, and when you face something like similar to the matrix concept, when you want to compute any mathematical equations but it's involve matrices, so you have to use two-dimensional arrays. Okay, let's see how to declare. Alright, so generally you have the primitive data types, integer, characters, strings, and so on, followed by these two sets of square brackets and the array name. Okay, for example, this one we have int, so the data types is integer. We have two set of the square brackets, and numbers here is the array name. Alright, so so how we create the two-dimensional array? So on the right hand side, we set using this equal and new followed by the data types and the square brackets consisting the rows and the columns. Okay, so the first square brackets referring to the horizontal elements, and columns will be based on the other one. Okay, number of columns, for example. Alright, so when we have these kinds of examples, int, so we know that we have scores as the array name and the data type as the integer. Then we have square bracket to note that this is two-dimensional array. Okay, then when we want to create, we will set it equal to new int, and the first square brackets involve your number of rows and the second square brackets involve your columns in that row. Okay, so rows and column will be that basic concept that you need to know. Alright, so how do we access the elements? Right, so the elements will be listed based on, let's say, scores 0, 0. So 0 means this is your row in the first element and your column in the first element. Okay, so we note that the index as 0, 0. Okay, so you can get the values using some numbers. For example, here as 85. Alright, so that is the accessing the elements for two-dimensional array. So for you to take notes that the first index referring to the row, second index referring to the column. You cannot switch between these two. Okay, cannot switch. Cannot switch. Okay, how to initialize will be similarly. Okay, but we will initialize the array form based on the row. Okay, based on the row. So when we have this int followed by the square brackets, array name as numbers, okay, and the initializations must have one set of these kinds of curly brackets, and the first elements will be for your first row. This is row number 1. Okay, next one, this is row number 2, then this is row number 3. Okay, so this row 1, row 2, row 3. We do not list the array for this two-dimensional array based on column. It must be represented by the row. Okay, now how to transform the program or problem consisting rows and column into the loop structure. Okay, so when you have two-dimensional array, then the best loop to design the coding will be based on for loop. Right? Okay, so for the outer for loop, the parameter involved here will be related to your rows. Okay, outer loop. So the loop for this for loop will be following your 3 items that needed. For example, your initialization. Okay, this is initialization. Then this is your conditions, and this is the update process. Alright. And for your inner loop, okay, for this is the inner loop, you can see some indentation to differentiate which one is outer and which one is the inner one. Also use the for loop, then this is the initializations, and this is the condition followed by the update process. Right? Then this is the task to be listed in the structure. Right, so for this one, this is actually the task for your inner loop, and this is the task for your outer loop. How do we know which one is inner and outer? Mainly we have to see which curly brackets represent either inner or outer structure. Alright. Okay, so what we have in the previous one-dimensional array in terms of length field, okay, also is applicable in this two-dimensional array. So we still use dot length. Okay, for designing this length field for two-dimensional array, the first length will be represent the number of rows. Okay, start with number of rows, and then that information will be thrown to your second one using array row dot length. So this row, where is it comes from? Should be from the previous array length that is coming from your number of rows. Alright. So for the second one, for the columns, it should relate to the rows, because the length field also following like your concept row and the column. So we should begin the array length, that means the number of rows, and then later on we need to consider the number of columns in that row. Right? Okay, so this is some examples how you can apply the length field in two-dimensional arrays. Okay, so let's see some example related to this length field in two-dimensional array. Okay, so we have this total initialized to 0. Okay, then we have outer loop. Alright, outer loops. So we start with the rows. Alright, then we have length field. So see, how do you know it's the length field? So we have numbers.length here. Then this is the condition. First one is your initialization. Second is your condition. The third one is your update process. Alright, for this row, that information will be used for your inner loop, which is for loop. This is the column and initialize as 0. This is your condition for the columns, and we have another length field here. Alright, then this is the update process for your inner loop. Alright. Okay, for computing the task, we have the task here, which is to compute. So the processing for the computations here will be conducted in two-dimensional array. So we see here there's a two pair of square brackets in terms of your row and column. Right. Okay, now let's see enhance for loop. Okay, enhance for loop. We can use or design enhance for loop for two-dimensional array. Okay, starting with your outer loop. Okay, so outer loop starts or referring to your rows, right? So we have array name to the row, and we have inner loop. So the row previous one will be useful in the inner loop here. Alright. So basically this is the task for inner loop to display the value, and then there is a printing new lines here. Alright. So enhance for loop work in two-dimensional array. It becomes much simpler since there is no index access. Okay, we did not read or call back the index access. Okay, next one, passing two-dimensional arrays to the methods. Okay. Okay, this is static void methods. This is no return value, and this is your array form. Array names. Here we have integer data type for this array, but it is in two-dimensional array, right? So this program has the inner loop. This is the inner loop, and this is the outer loop. Alright. So the outer loop represents the row. It is noted by the variable name of R. The inner loop for C referring to your column, right? So that is length field, okay, represent for the row and the column, right? So here the task for the inner loop is to display the array RC based on row and column. Alright, next we have the task here to display print lines, print new lines. Okay, next one is returns methods. We have public statics, and there's no void here. We have int, integer, for this array form for data type says integer. This is the names, and there is no parameter inside, means that there is no arguments. Okay, so in this program we have a two-dimensional array has signing values based on the row. First row here 1 2, second row is 3 4. But at the end of this, the structure need to return the table, means that based on row and column, based on the first row and the second row in the array form. Okay, but the array is in the format of two-dimensional array. Okay, next one we have rect arrays. Okay, rect arrays means that commonly when we defines or initialize for two-dimensional array, so the elements for each row would be the same. Okay, but if we have the case that the number of elements in that row is not equal to another row, okay, then the case is called as the rect arrays. You can have different lengths with for each row. Okay, for example, okay, we have row number 1, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, there are 3 items or elements. Row number 2, we have 2. Row number 3, we have 6. Only one. So this is 3, this is 2, this is 1. We can have this case. Okay, so the rows can have different lengths. So this is the term that we call as the rect arrays. Okay, so let's identify for this case first. Okay, let's identify. Is there any enhanced for loop? Any enhanced for loop?
Tak je.
No. Is there any rect arrays here? Any rect arrays?
No.
No.
No rect arrays. Mm. Okay. Any length fields? Any length field for this example? Any length field? Is there any length field?
Yes.
Where is it? Where is the
For outer loop score dot length.
outer loop? This one. Okay, so outer loop here refer to which part? Row or column? Row or
Row.
column?
Referring to row.
Okay, this one is row. Okay, inner loop,
Column.
column. Alright. Okay, what is the process here involved for this 80, 75, 90, 88, 92, 85? What is the process here involved for this part? What is that? What is the process involved here? Eighty, 75, 90. So what is the process involved there in the INT array form scores? What is that? What is this? What is this process? What is that process? What is that process name? What is that process name? New one? What is the process name? Is it initialization or not?
Array.
He said it is array. It is an array, but I'm asking about this 80, 75, 90, 88, 92, 85. What is this about? Is a process? Method to list the elements in that array. Okay, it's a method to list the elements in that array based on the row. Okay, so 80, 75, 90 is for elements in row number 1. 88, 92 and 85, okay, we list the elements for row number 2. Alright, okay, clear? Alright. Okay, so to wrap up, this is some important remark regarding one-dimensional array. Okay, so for this one-dimensional array, you take notes that arrays store multiple values of the same type. Same type means that same primitive data type. Okay, access via indices, whereby you can call based on the index number, start from 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on. So the length, You can see in the previous coding there is a dot length something, right? So that length referring to the property where it determines the size. And one dimensional array, we can use loops. Mainly is the for loop, and this array type can be passed to or returned from the methods, and there is an enhanced for loop. Enhanced for loop, that we didn't use the square bracket symbol, but we simplified the loop into two parts. Okay, the left one in terms of the array and consists of your temporary variable, right? Okay, for two-dimensional array, it's involved two pairs of the square brackets. The first bracket referring to your rows, second one referring to your columns. So similar to your one-dimensional array, we can access based on the two indices. Okay, your index number 1 from your row, index number 2 for your columns. And when we want to design this two-dimensional array, usually it is based on nested loops. Okay, mainly is the for loop, the common popular methods. And similar to one-dimensional array, we can have pass this array to the main method, and there is situations whereby this array method can be written from your main methods. And we have special arrays that is called regmet arrays. Okay. Alright, so any questions so far? Any question?
Madam, ada example tak untuk reference untuk
Example
array?
for yang mana tadi? Ada example tadi saya bagi dekat coding kan? So which one yang you refer? Yang you nak tanya?
Maksud saya dia punya result dia kalau letak dekat dalam coding.
Result dia dekat bahagian mana?
Semua array yang kita pernah belajar.
Yang saya highlight colour tu is the example coding lah.
Okay.
Okay, this ada example coding. This is example coding actually. Okay, this one. Alright, any other question? Okay, so